Good morning and welcome to Saxton Fireside Chats. I'm Ian Whitworth from Scene Change. Today's guest has a whole bunch of different backgrounds. She was a high-flying boss of marketing for brands like Ralph Lauren, Oriton, Citizen and Jaeger. After that, she founded and then sold the Little Black Dress Group, a networking organisation for business women. And then since then, she's now become a keynote and author with 2 books out and another one literally sitting on the table ready to roll. Her expertise is achieving brilliance through using your connections. So Janine Garner, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Tell us more about this, what you're doing now.
Well, Ian, I guess I am an expert in connection. I'm absolutely obsessed with the power of connection and how when you learn to connect in the right way, you can build powerful and brilliant relationships with people that will help you achieve your business and career goals. How when you learn to connect better, you can actually unlock ideas and collaborative opportunities that can rock the world. And ultimately, how when we connect better, when we get people working more effectively together, we can create extraordinary results and ultimately drive business performance. And I guess my corporate career, as you alluded to, which started off in the UK, and then I arrived in Australia in the year 2000, really started this curiosity about connection. Because I remember arriving here and suddenly I had to rebuild my career in a country where I had absolutely no social proof. I had to rebuild a network in a country where I knew no one. And then I had to rebuild this life, this dream, this vision that I had for myself in a country which was new and different and undiscovered for me.
And LinkedIn didn't even exist?
LinkedIn didn't even exist. It really didn't exist. And so suddenly I had to start from fresh. And that gave me this really incredible insight into how when you build great connections, meaningful connections, when you go deeper in your conversation, when you openly and willingly share your dreams, your hopes, your goals, your fears, these relationships will last a lifetime. And I'm living proof of it. You know, the breadth of connections, the diversity of industry has proved that. And I started really getting curious about, is this just me? Or is this something? And started talking to thousands of leaders around the world, researching, studying the power of connection. And from there, started writing multiple articles. I've written, as you said, 3 books. And I pretty much spend my life now keynoting and working in organizations to help them unlock this inner brilliance of connection, to create collaboration, to drive innovation, and to ultimately unlock that power of that individual within work and drive success. So yeah, to me, it's the absolute key differentiator between those that keep going along as normal and those that are able to unlock curiosity, to explore ideas, to really ensure that they've got that marketing machine around them, that board of advisors to facilitate tomorrow from today. So it ultimately is about driving personal and business success.
And how have the last few months been for you personally? As you, obviously your connections are a little stifled at the moment. How's it been?
It's actually, I think like many of us, it's been a really interesting time. And I think for myself and many of the people I've worked with, there's been a lot of soul searching around what this actually means, both for business, but also for themselves. And to me, it almost matters more than ever that we connect in the right way. It doesn't matter whether you are naturally an extrovert or an introvert. The reality is this need to belong is more important than ever. You know, we're seeing it on the streets now as people are getting excited about restrictions being lowered. I was excited about coming here today. It's like, yes, I'm leaving the house. And I think
in all of these interviews, people just go, I'm so happy to be here. It's like, it's not the usual happy to be here. It's, yes, I am actually happy to be here out of the house. It's so thrilling.
It's the human connection piece. And I think, you know, let's be clear. We are in a period of massive change. We are in a period where is moving so quickly, where almost what we did last week, we're suddenly having to change again this week. And the questions continue to be many and the answers are few. And yet, in spite of all of that, everybody is having to plan for the week, plan for the next 30 days, plan for the future. And yet we don't have the answers. It is this massive period of acute change and this constant change. And there will come a point where we go through the next period of change, which will be when things start getting back to some level of new norm. But we don't know the answers to that yet. You know, what does all this mean in terms of how people want to work, our expectations of leaders, our expectations of each other? What does this mean in terms of relationship building, client relationship building, of keynoting, of conferencing? What does this mean in terms of how we motivate and engage and train our staff? And in a period of so much uncertainty, now more than ever, we need to make sure that we have our key people around us, that we have our confidants around us, who we can share our thinking, we can explore ideas, we can share our fears, we can talk about opportunity, and ultimately have this board of contacts that will help us move through it.
What are your fears?
Oh, what are my fears? I mean, I naturally on the introvert scale, which is crazy, right? Because I set up a networking business and I've written about connection. Yeah. So I have realized about myself that I crave people and deep conversations. My fears, am I scared about the future? Not really. I actually think that the future is opening up opportunity for us. I think it's going to create new ways in which we connect. I think it's going to force us all to go deeper in terms of our connections. And I think what we are going to see is those brilliant leaders rise to those fore, those brilliant relationships get further reinforced, and those ideas come out which are going to change industry. So I'm not scared, I'm not fearful of it, I'm excited. I just hope it doesn't go on for 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
Sure. And personally, you've got 3 teenage kids at home.
Yeah.
How is that working? Because I've often wondered if you're a powerful motivator person with great ideas on building brilliance, does your routine work on your own teenage kids?
I think if I invited you to dinner tomorrow and you ask them that question, they go, "Oh, Mum, she's always quoting things at us." You know, like many of your listeners, I'm juggling multiple things at the moment. I'm trying to look after my business. I am managing my client relationships. I'm navigating how we evolve work to cope with the current demands. On top of that, we've got homeschooling, we've got children, we're trying to parent and try and keep sane within the whole thing. In terms of this connection piece, I think what many are starting to uncover is they actually have rediscovered their families through this period of time. I've spoken to many leaders who are actually going, how come I traveled so much? How come I was away from home so much? They've really enjoyed reconnecting with their families. And I think one of the most important pieces of connection or collaboration is to really understand where people are coming from. Our risk is that we talk at people. We tell them what we want them to know. So as an example, in my house at the beginning of COVID-19, I was doing what I thought was right in terms of sharing with my kids why it was important that we did the right thing, that we social distanced, that we stayed away from anyone. And yet all I was being bombarded with was anger and angst and frustration from the teenagers. And what became apparent is this need to remember that if we're going to connect, we've actually got to talk to people's losses. We've actually got to really get curious about where people are coming from. So with my teenagers, it was truly understanding that for the 17-year-old, you know, his loss was his lack of independence. So he was angry at the government, at adults, at the world, and yet it wasn't that. He was angry at his loss of independence. And so to be able to talk to his loss was one of the most important things.
There's a new mic for you there.
That's all right. Yeah.
Yeah, I have often wondered how that works because yeah, they're the toughest crowd of all. So for those of us at home who are living their life on Zoom and surrounded by Corona irritation, give us some practical tips on how to build your connections in a hands-on sort of way.
The reality is every single one of us needs connections. It doesn't matter whether you are currently in the position of having to find a new job. You might be in the position of getting curious about where your job is going. You may be a business owner that's going, oh my gosh, how do I rebuild this business that I've put my blood, sweat and tears into for the last 10, 15, 20 years? It feels like I'm back at startup land. Or your business may have totally died and you're looking at what to do next. It actually does not matter at what level you are in your life, your career. We all need to connect in the right way because your connections will open up opportunity. They'll create ideas. They'll give you the support that you need. And they will be those cheerleaders that will push you further than you can ever go yourself. They'll keep you sane. They'll hold you accountable and they'll develop your thinking. And you're quite right, Ian, in this current time where everything is online, everything is from Zoom, how do we do it? The reality is the basics are still the same. Just because we are being forced online does not mean that we can't connect. So my advice to people and to people listening in today is, first of all, get really clear on the help that you need right now. Now, prior to COVID, we might have gone, what's my business plan for the next 12 months, 2 years, 3 years? But maybe right now, just think about what help do I need in the next 3 months? Or the next 6 months. Get really clear of the support that you are reaching out for and the contacts that you could connect with. Then I say, get intentional about connecting with your confidants, those key people that will not judge, that will celebrate with you, that will allow you to get angry and frustrated, but at the same time help you navigate your way through it, and that will hold you accountable for you moving both through COVID-19 and out of the other side. Too many of us forget about those key people. We are literally going through our lives just connecting with people when we want something, hustling for the next sale, and almost, we were talking off air, it's like this blasting of information out on social media that there's so much noise. Yep. And yet the people that can help you are closer than you think. So be intentional about setting up specific times. So for myself, as an example, I am very intentional about, for my particular butt kicker in my world, every Monday and Friday we touch base. These are the key 3 things I'm working on this week. This is how I got on this week. I've set up an inner circle mastermind group where a small group of business owners get together and we don't just whinge about the challenges. We actually are exploring the possibility together. I've set up a mastermind of female keynoters where we're catching up and we're talking about how to navigate through these uncertain times and get to the other side. And I keep in touch with my personal cheerleaders and let them know what I'm working on, the projects that and the information that I'm exploring, the fact that the next book's coming out, and I ask for help. So be intentional. And then the final thing really is as leaders, and we all are, we're leaders of families, we're leaders of communities, we're leaders of businesses, we're leaders of teams, is you more than ever right now have to ensure that you are functioning at your best. You have so much demand on you. The reality is we are, if we're not careful, suffering from significant amounts of emotional labor, of exhaustion. We're exhausted mentally with trying to process all of this data and all of these changes. We're exhausted emotionally in terms of managing our teams, our suppliers, our clients, our families, our children, their schooling, that we're forgetting about ourselves. And all of this is impacting us physically. So this exhaustion is very real right now. And for that reason, as leaders, it's important that you tap into your personal inner circle and ask them for help to help you navigate through it. Because our leaders today, we need you to be present. We need you to be present.
Don't have a personal circle,
then I would
how do you
suggest
get
that you
one?
probably do. I think that your personal circle is closer than you think. So get curious about who are the people around you that are going, I'm really enjoying your work. Your work is really good. Is there anything I can do for you? Do you need some help? That is your promoter. Who is the person around you that is checking in and going, are you okay? Are you really okay?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, are you sure you're okay? Because things don't seem right now. That is what I call the pit crew, the group of people that care for who you are today. Who are the people around you right now that are going, do you know what? That's really good, but have you thought about?
Is now a time for analog communication rather than just firing off a message?
I
Is it? What are your thoughts?
I think it's a blended approach. I think if we become too transactional in our strategic way in which we're connecting people, we lose the depth. The reality is, at the moment, there is too much connection that is simply a transfer of information. It's like information out. And what we need to do is ensure we've got a transfer of humanity. The reality is we cannot get together face to face as much as we did, but it doesn't stop us connecting. So phone calls, text, light touch emails, setting up Zoom calls, maybe that absolutely essential coffee that you just happen to bump into somebody at the same time and you take a walk together, the walk and talk meetings. Wherever possible, the point here is be intentional. Make a point of understanding that connection absolutely matters. Sharing ideas matters. Sharing what your hopes, your dreams, your fears, your strengths, your weaknesses are, sharing that matters. Here's the thing, right? A couple of years ago, I was doing a project with my now 11-year-old, and the project was about eagles. I don't know if you've ever looked into
Cool.
eagles. Do you like eagles?
Have I looked in? Everyone likes eagles.
Aren't they amazing?
It's like penguins. You can't not like them.
Amazing. But here's the thing about eagles, right? When a storm hits, eagles get really excited. They love it, because what they do is they go and they try and find the top of the wind and the storm so that they can glide above it, so that they can get to their destination with very little effort and very little energy. And yet in the trees, the rest of the birds are screaming and screeching and making so much noise at the panic of the storm coming. And when I think about the eagles and think about the other birds in the trees, I likened that to what goes on for all of us. My suggestion is, don't you want to be an eagle? Don't you want to surround yourself with people that ultimately are going to help you fly higher to get to your destination quicker? Or are you going to choose to be amongst the trees, blaming other people, deflecting your lack of success, going round and round in circles, not being able to navigate your way through it like those noisy birds in the trees? Or at worst, are you going to try and go it alone?
Eagles in the storm.
Eagles
your
in the
symbol
storm,
of
fly higher.
success through difficulty. No wonder that's why eagles are on all the motivational posters, I guess.
Well, they are, true.
So the sort of things you're saying, because the traditional business conversation at a cocktail party, wherever, is like, how are you? Oh, busy. Oh, yeah, I'm so busy. Oh, busy, busy,
Well,
busy.
fine.
You sit there saying busy at each other. So what specific questions should you ask someone instead if you want to do better than that?
So one of the first things I actually teach people to do is to respect time. The scarcest thing we have right now is time. And yet, every single one of us will send an email. Have you got 15 minutes? Can I take you for a coffee? Fancy grabbing lunch? Can I pick your brains? Or at worst, connect on LinkedIn, connect on LinkedIn, connect on LinkedIn. No, that is not connection. That is purely transactional. That is literally like buying a jar of Vegemite or a tin of baked beans.
It's a vending machine.
It is a vending machine. What we have to do, if you want to reach out to someone, why? Get curious as to why. Do your research and think through what is the one key question that if you only had 5 minutes, you'd want to ask. So instead of me going, Ian, let's connect on LinkedIn, or Ian, can I pick your brains about how you set up your studio? I actually reach out to you and go, Ian, I'm really inspired at the journey that you've taken and what you've built with your business. I'm currently looking at building an at-home studio. And given you're an expert in this space, what is the one bit of advice you would give me as somebody that is wanting to use this technology to share my thought leadership around the world?
Because people like to help, don't they?
People want to help. In a networking situation, which are going to be quite a few months away, or let's say you're meeting people in a cafe or you're going to that drinks party, just be a bit more interesting. Use pop culture, use the environment around you, use what you are seeing about other people. And instead of going, how are you doing? What brought you here today? What's your favorite drink right now? What was the last book you read? Did you watch MasterChef last night? What did you think about? So it's this ability to actually engage and find a connection point versus the superficiality of who are you, what do you do, and where do you come from? Or how are you feeling? People go, I'm
so it's
fine,
less like filling out a form.
Yeah. It's be interested. Be interested in the human being.
And how does this then flow through to leadership?
Well, leaders have to be interested in the people that are working for them. Leadership fundamentally is a practice. It is about every single day being curious about the work that you are doing, the impact that you are having, the stuff that you might have to change to ensure that you are getting closer towards your destination. And leadership fundamentally is absolutely about having a plan for point A, where you want to get to, from point A to point B. You have that vision, you're setting that direction. But as leaders, it's not a straight horizontal line from A to B. We know it zigs and zags around, and hopefully we get to B, but more often than not, we get to C. So the job as a leader ultimately is to meet people where they're at and to inspire them to follow you to where you want to go. And leaders, more than ever today, have to learn how to meet their team where they're at. They have to be present. They have to show compassion. They have to absolutely be decisive. So get the collaborative information, make sure you have what you know to make a decision on, but then be decisive. And they have to talk to people's losses. Mm-hmm. You cannot move people through this unless you understand what people are fearing right now. And we've seen some brilliant examples of this, both pre-COVID and now through COVID. If you look at the CEO of Airbnb and his recent email that he sent out, where unfortunately they'd had to make a decision to reduce the employee base by 25%, a pretty tough decision to actually share from a business perspective. But his email that he sent out, which hit the social media storm, talked to how hard that decision was. It talked to the difficulty behind it. It gave the rationale as to why he had to make the decision. But at the same time, he showed love for the team and the people there and asked them to support it. We see it among some of our incredible politicians, where, I'm particularly thinking of Jacinda Ardern, New Zealand. She made some tough decisions, and yet we saw her talking to the people of New Zealand from her front room in the equivalent of her pajamas, talking to the pain that New Zealanders were feeling, but saying we've all got a job to do. She was present, she was vulnerable, she spoke to the losses. And I'm not even going to mention the flip side of that style of leadership, but you only have to look at what's happening in other countries around the world to see where leadership is falling down. In my own circle, the MD of a big tech company here, DXC Technologies, Seelan, he's shown incredible leadership. From the moment COVID-19 hit, every single day he would get onto Zoom and it would be an open conversation, a question and answer session where he would say, I don't have the answer to that right now, but this is what I know. He was present, he was vulnerable, and he was decisive. And there's even footage of him sat there with the DXC teddy bear, and at one stage it got too much for him. And you can see he is emotionally moved by the incredible pressure that's on him. But here's the thing, unless our leaders meet people where they're at, unless we can talk to our teams and engage them and tap into their hearts, not just their heads, nothing is going to move forward and we won't change. So connection matters. It's not just about connecting to the stats and the strategy and the future thinking and the challenges at hand. The reality is we're in an adaptive environment where we're all going to have to evolve every single day. We're going to have to tap into our intuition and make decisions without all the answers. We're going to have to be curious and play on the edges and explore new ideas and innovations. We've got to learn how to make sense and connect dots and people. But most of all, we've got to inspire others to follow us. And that fundamentally is the big key to change.
We're seeing a lot of things coming out of business at the moment, like flexibility and nimbleness and understanding of emotions and being able to negotiate and look after people that don't normally get looked after. And that's quite nice. Will this continue, or will it be over as soon as we're all back out of the house?
Who's to know? That's one of those questions that many of us have a preferred answer to, but we actually don't really know, Ian. I think it would be nice if we all learn through this process about the opportunity that is open to every single one of us to evolve how we lead, how we build cultures, how we structure our teams, how we run our businesses. But we don't know what the reality will be like, because at the end of the day, we have shareholders. Big businesses have shareholders, and we're beholden to shareholders. I think it's going to take a significant amount of bravery and courage from all of us to be prepared to ask for the stuff we want back, and to be brave enough to ask for the stuff we don't want to go back to. So who knows? Who knows? I do think that what it's given us is incredible insight into possibility. All of those things that we were talking again off camera about, you know, the futurist view of where everything's going in terms of technology and online working, et cetera, et cetera. You know, suddenly we've had a reality check of what is possible, of how much business, how many decisions, how much connection, how many think tanks can happen globally, irrespective of boundaries, irrespective of where people are located. And for me, that's the exciting thing, because if we can bring diversity of thought to the table easier, if we can create environments where people feel safe enough to share their opinion and to explore possibility, then perhaps we will create a better environment for us to work in and to live in and to lead our important own little tribes of families into the future.
Because those things are not necessarily the opposite of profitability or shareholder value, whatever, is it? Like
No.
that.
No, and I think that's what's been really interesting for some people to explore. You know, I was talking to a senior leader yesterday, actually, and he was saying up until COVID, he was absolutely against online meetings. He's a very senior leader, again, in tech, and he would be the sort of person that would jump on a plane to go for an hour meeting for a potential sales appointment, or if the client demanded. And he openly actually was against online meetings, and he would be traveling backwards and forwards. And yesterday he said to me, I've changed my opinion. I have actually seen how we can still do this stuff and at the same time have more time at home, have more time working at the pace we want to work, use time more productively. So I think it's given people insight into this possibility, and the next step that we get to, this next phase of change, as we start moving back to a world of new norm, that is when we're going to really rely on all of us, leaders, employees, clients, suppliers, to be prepared to do things differently.
Cool. We have a question from Alison. Hi, Alison. What happens if you work in a silo organisation with people who do not want to collaborate? ISO has been a gift.
That's an interesting question. First of all, I'd be asking, why do you think they don't want to collaborate? So the thing to do here is to get very curious about the work that is involved. I reckon there's 4 critical steps to effective collaboration. The first one is, why are we collaborating? Everything that we do revolves around work, the work. So that project, coming up with that new idea, setting up this incredible collaboration that you've done with Saxtons and these fireside chats, everything has an end goal. So getting clear on that. Then, Alison, it's about getting curious about, what does success look like? What are you trying to achieve? And getting clear on that. Is it about results? Is it about sharing information? Is it about pulling together data so that you can explore the next step? Is it actually just about getting the job done? The next piece is who's involved. And this is often, as you've identified, Alison, where it falls down. Because the thing with who's involved, everybody is bringing their own stuff to the table. And I would suggest you start getting curious about these 4 things. Think about each person that's involved in that team or in that collaboration. What is their perspective on the work? Number 1. Number 2, what do they really value? Number 3, what are they actually loyal to? And number 4, what are they worried about losing? So essentially, my recommendation when collaboration doesn't work, it's about actually looking at it from a different perspective and getting curious about those questions, because every single person involved in a piece of work has their own value system, their own perspective on the problem, their own loyalty, and every single person has something to lose. And if you can identify what it is that they're really worrying about losing, and then talk to that, you will actually unlock opportunity to collaborate better. The 4th thing when it comes to effective collaboration is an agreement up front about how are we going to work effectively together. Too many collaborations fall down because that conversation never happens. The only time we try and navigate that is usually when something terrible goes wrong or silos that get created. But up front, we have to get really clear about what sorts of behaviors are acceptable and what sort of behaviors are unacceptable. So essentially, you're building a container around which or within which great collaboration happens, and getting curious about all the people involved in that work and what is it that is driving them and what is it that's worrying them. And if you can talk to that, you'll be able to open up opportunities to collaborate better.
Cool. Is it possible just the word collaboration turns people off, a bit like
Possibly.
team building? You just go, want to collaborate? It's like, no,
Yeah.
I'm busy. Whereas
Ah,
maybe if it's pitched to them in some more appealing way than just saying
yeah.
collaboration is good, therefore you should do it.
Yeah. I think the challenge is there's so many buzzwords that are used, and yet they're just words, and the behavior doesn't reflect it. You know, collaboration, diversity, agile, networking, pivot. You know, they're all words that become the vernacular of business, and yet the behavior behind it isn't the same. And I think, you know, simplify the language. What is collaboration? Let's work together. What is networking? Connection. Let's get to know each other.
Help me out here.
Yeah. What is agility? Let's see if we can move any quicker.
Question from Meg. Hi, Meg. Do you think virtual events have the same level of connection and engagement for attendees? Tough.
I think that's a really great question. And it's one I've actually been chatting to Anne, the CEO of Saxton, about. Honestly, I think no.
Yeah,
I think no. I think online serves a purpose, and I think experiential serves a purpose, and I think the ideal is blended. If we can create some sort of hybrid, is blended. The reality is human beings are here and have an innate desire to belong. The challenge with online is much of it is from the neck up, and we're trying to read people's eyes. And yet we take so many cues from body language, from how people are sitting. We're picking up on the energy around us, and we're able to change our approach. And a bit like that earlier question, we're able to change how we're working together based on the body language and the cues that we're picking up. I also think the risk of virtual is that is the challenge around how do you create space and time for our best and our brightest, for people to think and to percolate. Because there is an incredible amount of magic that happens when people can just be, they can converse, they can explore, they can check in, they can hear ideas, they can ask where that idea is coming from, in a way that fuels more ideas and more ideas and more ideas, this incredible ripple effect, multiplier effect of behavior. And if we're not careful, that is what we will miss. So I think it's going to have to be a blended piece. I think there is something incredibly magical that happens when you bring great groups of people together out of their space to essentially play, to explore, to percolate, to ideate, to think, because the beauty of the two-way conversation is what creates the next and the next and the next. And that is really challenging virtually.
And being realistic, that is enhanced by alcoholic beverages.
Possibly.
We all know
Possibly.
It's true. You, exciting news. We have Janine's book, Be Brilliant, How to Lead a Life of Influence. Oh, coming up quite nice under the studio lights for a black book. Is coming out. When's it coming out?
July 1, it is out officially.
July 1. So look out for that one. Thanks for joining us, Janine.
My pleasure.
It's been fascinating, and for the folks at home, thank you so much for joining us and sitting through Sydney's exciting mega hailstorm that went through 20 minutes ago. But hey, that's showbiz.
It is showbiz.
See you again soon.
Thank you.